Thank you, everyone, for subscribing to Infinitely Productions. If you have not done so, please click the bell and subscribe, and we hope you enjoy our content.
Sources.
At the Gotti trial, those sources were the eavesdropping tapes made by the FBI. Not only had the feds bugged Gotti's principal hangout, the Ravenite Social Club, the agents had even managed to sneak a microphone into the apartment above the club, where the suspicious Gotti held his most private and incriminating conversations.
You tell this punk, I, me, John Gotti, you sever your mother head off, you fucker.
I kept wondering what possible response the defense would have to that. How do you explain that your client has just said, when I whacked DB? How do you explain when he says, when I killed, you know why Louis DeBono is going to die? He's going to die because he didn't come in when I called him. How do you explain that?
I think that the sever the head remark was neutralized by its exposure for what it was, an overstatement. An extreme expression. We're not all that restrained in our everyday language, and this was everyday language for Mr. Gotti.
Gotti's language did not seem so everyday in other cases. On one tape, he said to his co-defendant, Frank Locascio, "Every time we got a partner that don't agree with us, we kill him." The trial lasted 2.5 months. The government's 1-2 punch of Gravano and the tapes had been a powerful combination. But in his closing statement, lead prosecutor Andrew Maloney nearly compromised his entire case. He warned the jury that if they were afraid of John Gotti, they had good reason. It was a highly prejudicial comment. The defense attorneys immediately called for a mistrial, claiming Maloney had poisoned the jury.
I thought I'd fall off the chair. I could not believe what I had heard. I have known Mr. Maloney too long and too well to believe that that remark was anything else other than a deliberate remark.
Think about it for a second. What possible motive could the lead prosecutor have in saying to the jury that we've just spent an hour, no, actually we spent a day asking them, please find this defendant guilty? What possible motive would we have for saying to him, oh, and by the way, if you do, he'll kill you?
Judge Glasser did not rule for a mistrial, and the jury found John Gotti guilty of racketeering and all the other counts, including the 3 murders. He was sentenced to life without parole. Frank Locascio was convicted on all counts except a minor gambling charge. After the sentencing, a crowd from Gotti's neighborhood erupted into a riot outside the courthouse, overturning U.S. Marshals' cars and attacking policemen. Gotti's fans were confident.
And I'll bet anybody in this world, whatever they want to bet, that this man wins the appeal.
Today, John Gotti is doing his time at Marion Federal Prison in southern Illinois. He's currently appealing his conviction to the U.S. Supreme Court. Sammy the Bull Gravano, on the other hand, has visited Washington, where he testified before Congress on the mafia's infiltration of professional boxing. In 1994, as a reward for testimony that prosecutors said led to almost 40 convictions, Gravano received his own sentence, 5 years.
So if everything works out perfect, he's got every thug in America out to kill him, and when he's 65, he can get out and try and keep out of their way until he dies. Along the way, he loses his family, his friends, his home. It beats life without parole, I'll admit that, but not by much.
My name is Salvatore Gravano. Early in my life, I was given the nickname Sammy the Bull. I have been in jail since December of 1990, when I was arrested with John Gotti. I was his underboss and second of command of the Gambino family.
Most mafia informers turn or flip only after they're out of range of the mob's lethal vengeance. But next, we'll hear from a stool pigeon who stayed in the mafia to exact his own revenge. This mob rat worked undercover for the FBI for 3 years, gathering evidence until he put a dozen fellow mobsters behind bars.
The common image of a mafia stool pigeon is that of a man in a hushed courtroom surrounded by a wall of bodyguards. He turns on his former partners in crime from the relative safety of the witness protection program. But some mob rats take much bigger risks.
I wore body recorders for evidence. I risked my life getting evidence. I didn't just go there and say, look, this guy did this guy did that, this guy did this.
Joseph Joe Dogs Ianuzzi, a Florida mobster from the Gambino family's heyday, put a dozen of his mafia pals behind bars for revenge. Born in 1931, Ianuzzi grew up in a New York City suburb. At the age of 14, Joe was already a smooth operator with a police record. He was a chip off the old block of his small-time bookie father.
I used to go around with him on a Saturday and pick up the number bets. My father wasn't a good father or anything, you know, he was, a hustler. But my mother raised me good, the best she could.
To straighten out, he joined the Army. He saw action in Korea and was wounded twice. But after his discharge, it wasn't long before he was picking up a quick illegal buck where he could, working with crooks on the fringe of the mob. By his 30s, Joe found himself living in West Palm Beach, Florida, with a wife and 3 kids, but no real career. As usual, he was on the outskirts of the underworld. That's when he met Gambino soldier Tommy Agro.
When I first met Agro, I thought I met the boss of the mob. He had such charm and class and sharp dresser and jewelry that, he was my idol. And I wanted to be just like him.
Tommy and Joe's relationship was a love-hate relationship. Tommy was much like an abusive father who loved his child.
In 1971, Tommy Agro was an up-and-coming mobster in the New York Gambino family. He was respected, meaning he was feared, and he was Ianuzzi's hero. To impress Agro, Joe took him to the dog track, a favorite haunt. After a successful day of betting, Agro gave Ianuzzi his official mob nickname, Joe Dogs.
Some kind of handle you had to have. Huh? Me, I was Joe Dogs. Before I was Joe Dogs, I was Joe Diner, After Joe Diner, I was Joe Drywall. It's...
For his mafia apprenticeship, Joe Dogs would seek out applicants for mob loans at 5% interest or juice each week, 300% a year. Soon, Joe was what authorities called Mr. Organized Crime in southern Florida. The New York Gambino family, then under boss Big Paulie Castellano, was establishing its control over the region. Joe Dogs became their mouthpiece and their muscle. It was a role he savored.
Forget about it. I felt like King Kong. I mean, nobody could come near me. You felt like Superman. I mean, really. I felt like I lived in a phone booth. It was a great feeling, a great feeling.
The mob runs on fear, and the fear inspired by the Gambinos helped Joe do his job.
Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel and check out more content. Feel free to give us your feedback and suggestions on who we should do next in the comments. This is Infinitely Productions. We love ya.